The 49ers still very much alive after a 20-10 win against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday night. Jason Aponte, play the music for a new SRO.
Burp. Burp, 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 burp. Burp.
We are live on YouTube.com. I'm Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte. It's a new Sprint Ride Option podcast. We're going to be talking about 49ers over the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football, a 20-10 victory for the 49ers to move to 5-2. But Jason, as we like to always start these, how's your Monday going?
Pretty good. I mean, the Lions are kicking the shit out of the Bucks right now, but it just sucks to see Mike Evans go down again, man. I hope he's all right, man. One of my favorite players to watch.
Yeah, no, it definitely didn't look good for Mike Evans. We'll see what comes out of that. But the Lions, it's only 14-0 right now in Detroit. But the stats are saying it looks much different than that. I think they just showed a stat where Detroit's outgaining them like 250-54 or something like that. So it's been a relatively dominating start for the Lions. We'll kind of monitor this game as it goes along. And there is some interest for the 49ers because if Tampa Bay loses this game, they'll be tied for the second best record in the NFC, which because I believe the Packers, they have that goofy little tie that gives them a higher winning percentage than the 49ers. But every team in the NFC would have at most 5 wins. So wouldn't be the worst result for the 49ers if the Lions hold on here to beat the Buccaneers, as Goff just shows like a two-handed shovel pass. That was interesting. But we're here to talk about the 49ers over the Atlanta Falcons, Jason. We covered a lot of it on Instant Reaction. We've had a day to soak it in, soak the victory in for the 49ers. As I said, a 20-10 relatively dominating victory for the 49ers on Sunday Night Football. I think it's one of those games we talked about last night where the score doesn't tell the whole story. Atlanta really struggled moving the ball most of the night. The Niners offense was really gashing the Falcons defense through the run game the entire night. But Jason, now that we're 24 hours removed before we really kind of start breaking down everything, how are you feeling about the win last night?
The same, but I think the big news is about the injuries today. The
Yes.
same. I mean, it's exactly what I thought it was last week. Last night.
So let's talk about those injuries, Jason Aponte, because there were a few. First of all, Brock Purdy doesn't sound like he's going to play on Sunday. That's one of the bigger headlines today.
Yeah, but
Jake
that was
Brendel.
hold on, real quick, Andrew. During the game, I don't know if anybody was paying attention. They were talking about Brock Purdy, and they were like, no timetable.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't a shock. I mean, you hear that on the broadcast. When you hear no timetable, keep going with Mac then.
That doesn't make you feel great about what, because I mean, you got to remember too, when this injury first happened with Brock Purdy, it was one of those where they said, hey, this is a week-to-week thing. They rush him back against Jacksonville, and now I would say it's even more concerning now that it's a no timeline situation. So we'll see what comes out of that. The Renardo Green injury was a little more serious, or a little less serious than stated yesterday. There were some concerns about turf toe. He's now day-to-day with a toe injury. But then the two big ones, Jake Brendel is expected to miss multiple weeks with a hamstring injury. We saw that injury happen. Obviously, we talked about Hennessy replacing him at the center position and what that could mean for the Niners. But then the real big blow, one that sounds like it happened in the last couple of plays of the game last night, Bryce Huff, who's led the Niners pass rush, especially since Nick Bosa went down. He's also expected to miss a couple weeks with hamstring injuries. That should be the Texans and the Giants game, maybe even beyond that. We'll see. We just can't enjoy things, right? Like that's just kind of we've made this joke dozens of times at this point, but we just can't enjoy wins anymore.
Yeah, it is what it is. I'm numb to it. So just you got to keep playing, and somebody else has got to step up, and that's it. Like that's the theme of this season. So it is what it is. There's no point in getting upset, but it was kind of good to hear Kyle say he would be shocked if it was anything more than 2 weeks. So take that for whatever it's worth, especially given the injury history track record with how these teams discloses things. So, but it just sucks because it comes off of Huff's best game as a 49er, and him and Sammy O were really good. But you know what, man? Somebody else has got to step up. And, like I said last night, because of the 49ers injury situation, I don't have to give a shit about anybody else's injury situation. And you know what? That includes the 49ers. I don't have to give a shit about their injury situation either. Just keep playing.
Yeah, I'm curious if this makes them maybe not rush a trade, but because a report came out earlier that the Niners are looking for somebody who's going to be under team control when they acquire him in a trade, whoever that may be. But I'm curious if where it is now with Bryce Huff, because now Sammy O moves up to be your number one pass rusher with Michael Williams in support. I'm curious if maybe they try and push something to be done for Sunday. I don't know how likely that is. Obviously, got to remember the timeline of like the Christian McCaffrey trade a few years ago, where he was acquired on a Thursday night and he was able to play some snaps. They got Evans on a cart right now,
I
so
saw that.
that's not a
Yeah.
good sign. I don't know how realistic that is, but I'm very curious, especially too with the rumors coming out that Miami seems more and more willing to trade one of their mini pass rushers they have, Phillips, Judon, or Bradley Chubb. So I'm curious to see if maybe the Niners rush and get something done this week to be ready for Sunday.
I don't think they will, though. I just think they're still going to be waiting until the trade deadline to assess where they are and figure that out. And I think a lot of that has to do with what happens with Yetur Gross-Matos and when he returns, how long it's going to take Bryce Huff to get back. I don't think the 49ers are going to rush and do anything rash because, again, they're kind of playing with house money. Nobody would fault them for wherever this season goes just based on all the injuries and how hard it is to bounce back from all that. So, they kind of press something and maybe send a draft pick for somebody who maybe falls out of favor or just isn't going to be impactful. I just don't think they will, and I just think they're just going to roll with whoever it is against Houston. We'll find out what Houston looks like in a little while when they play Seattle, but I just think they're going to wait for the trade deadline and they're going to just roll the next guy up and just say, hey, listen, it's your turn. So that's it.
And I mean, it's worked as long as Robert Sala is there. I mean, we saw it with Tatum Bethune last night. We saw it with Darrell Luter. We saw it with Chase Lucas. Like, it works, and as long as it keeps working, there's no reason to believe it won't keep working. But Jason, let's start talking about the game last night. Let's go down position by position, kind of break it down how we used to. I think that's easier for my brain to keep track of things. Mac Jones at quarterback goes 17 for 26, 152, and an interception. He was sacked once. Again, I think this kind of falls into the same category as the Tampa Bay game. Like, Mac Jones didn't jump off the paper. Obviously didn't, especially with his fewest yards as a starter this season. But again, it's mistake-free football. The one interception was on Jawan Jennings. We talked about that at length last night. As long as Mac Jones continues to play mistake-free football, and if he can continuously hit 300 yards throwing, obviously last night didn't happen, but I'll gladly take mistake-free football from Mac Jones, especially if it's resulting in wins.
Yeah, but the game plan was to just run the football. They weren't even going to try to throw the football in this game, and it was to help the defense out and to understand that this is the first time the 49ers could get the run game going. So I mean, I really, again, he executed the game plan. He did exactly what was asked of him. And when you're running the football that well, then you don't have to throw the football. It's Kyle Shanahan's dream. So I just feel like that was the game plan. It was executed.
Yep.
Everything under center, all gap scheme stuff, nothing outside zone. We can bully this lighter front, and they don't have the speed. Without Jalen Walker and certain these guys. Like, I mean, they have the speed collectively as a defense, and this is what we talked about in the preview show. But they don't have the muscle. So if you're able to muscle them in the middle and run inside zone, that's exactly what the 49ers did. So far more gap scheme stuff. I thought that was interesting, but I think that was more a functionality of one, understanding that you have the advantage, and two, thinking that this is probably the best way to gain that advantage and actually turn it into something that you can build on for this run game that has been just dormant all season.
Well, let's go into that run game because, again, I think there's not much to talk about with the passing game. Obviously, as I said, 152 yards is really not much there to talk about. No, nothing really stood out. Let's get into that run game because for the first time this season, the run game made an appearance. Christian McCaffrey, obviously the talk of town right now, 24 carries for 129 yards and those 2 rushing touchdowns. Brian Robinson, 9 carries for 36 yards. Keep in mind that Bijan Robinson, the best running back in football, finished with 14 for 40. So Robinson was more productive than Bijan Robinson yesterday. That's just how good the Niners run game was. Mac Jones even had a pretty important scramble on the final drive of the game for the 49ers offense. But Jason, we kind of touched on it yesterday. We're 24 hours removed. Do you think the 49ers run game is all the way back? Do you think this was a product of Hennessy at center and George Kittle blocking had nothing to do with the Atlanta defense? Where are you after? Because I'm assuming you saw some of the film today, at least a little bit of it. So where are you with the run game's performance yesterday?
Well, it's obviously boosted by George Kittle, and maybe
Yeah.
Hennessy is going to be really good at that. Funny enough, if you look at the PFF grades, Jake Brendel was up in the high 80s in whatever grade that you're looking for, run blocking, pass blocking. That's pretty funny when you really think about it. But yeah, I don't think they're all the way back, and it's going to be next week that it's going to be tough for them to run the football. Houston is very good, and I think, again, a few things can be true. Atlanta's defense is bad against the run. The 49ers recognize an opportunity to get it going. Maybe there is a little bit of carryover into the Houston game, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I think that the 49ers are just going to run all over the Houston Texans because that would be silly of me. Their defense is too good for that. So it's a combination of a few things. It's good to see George Kittle back. The plan was to run the football as much as they did. He talked about that after the end of the game. And they took advantage and they did it. Again, I don't blame teams for when they have an advantage over teams and they use it and they exploit it, right? Like, and people are just like, oh, well, they're a bad run defense. Well, that's what you would want your run offense to do. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I think they're all the way back, especially given the test of the Houston Texans next week.
Yeah, I think the thing that was most positive too, and I looked it up last night after the podcast, Jason, is entering week 7, Christian McCaffrey had 7 runs of 10 yards or more. Last night alone, he had 7 runs of 10 yards or more. So he doubled that output in one game. And it felt like the old Christian McCaffrey was back. But yeah, this isn't the end of it. We can't sit here and say the run game is completely back because of last night. There needs to be more consistency. And I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to expect 24 for 129 from Christian McCaffrey against Houston, because that would be a very silly thing to think, because Houston's a very good run defense. But just the consistency needs to be there. He's been lacking that all season. And just getting it for one night only, it feels good. It feels good to see, because we were talking about it in the preview that if this isn't the game, the run game returns, then we really have concerns, because there was plenty of opportunity. Atlanta not having Jalen Walker and then losing Divine Diablo, obviously a huge blow to that run defense for Atlanta. But seeing McCaffrey being able to do it after 6 games of him having some issues, consistency. I mean, really all it comes down to is 3.1 yards per carry. Like that's not a good number for an NFL running back, let alone for Christian McCaffrey. He bumps that up to, I think, 3.5 with his performance yesterday. And I would just like to see that yard per attempt go up as we go forward.
It's going to depend on who they face, and Houston has a really good run defense, so it's going to be tough to see if them duplicate that, especially with D'Amico knowing what's going to be going on. I'm not trying to be negative or anything like that. It's just the facts of the facts. When I know the 49ers have an advantage, like all week, I'll tell you they're going to kick their ass running the football, or we've got a bigger question. I don't have that same confidence going into this Houston game, but it was nice to see Brian Robinson, at least 9 for 36, something like that. Again, when it just felt like the 49ers identity was back, and that's something that we hadn't seen. They had been finding ways to win games, but that was the most 49ers win of all the 49ers wins this season in terms of the identity that they want to establish, being tough up front, being able to run the football, making their quarterback only drop back 28 times. Literally, it was just, exactly how they draw up their physicality and the way they want to be identity. So I think that's a little bit more important than the numbers itself, is that they showed themselves and everybody else that, hey, when we want to, or we still can, we can still turn that button on and we can still, out physical you and beat your ass.
I like that. I like that. We want to see it more. We'll see if it happens on Sunday against Houston, but it was just good to see for one night. The receiving game, kind of more of the same conversation. Jason Aponte, Christian McCaffrey leads the way, 7 receptions for 72 yards. Juwan Jennings behind him, 4 receptions for 31 yards. Sky Moore, 1 for 15. Kendrick Bourne, 2 for 14. Kind of goes down from there. Christian McCaffrey was his first 200 total yard game as a San Francisco 49er. It was his first since, I believe it was week 5 of the 2019 season. So obviously a very good overall game for him. And I talked about it on Friday, Jason, that he was 40 yards behind Bijan Robinson for the league lead in total yards from scrimmage. He surpassed Bijan Robinson with his game yesterday. I don't think we really need to talk about his importance in the pass game, because that's been the role he's played in all season, especially with his struggles in the run game. My question, Jason, especially after last night's performance, if you look at the receivers alone, 7 receptions by 49ers receivers. That doesn't count Luke Farrell, George Kittle. George Kittle, obviously a tight end, no receptions. Do you think the Niners try and make a move for a receiver at the deadline, or do you think that? And I'm not going to pitch my Jalen Waddle idea again, Jason. I promise. Just some sort of receiver, because I feel like I don't think it's as simple as just getting Ricky Pearsall back at this point, because no receivers really stood out for the 49ers this season outside of Pearsall. Do you think they could maybe make a move for a receiver?
Nah, I don't think so. I think they're just gonna roll with what they got, and I think a function of last night was not only one, they know that they were gonna be able to run the football, and that was the game plan. It's just that's what you wanted to stay away from. I mean, if you're talking about a team that blitzes all the time and gets a high pressure rate, why would you craft a game plan where you want Mac Jones as a statue to drop back 35, 40 times, right? So I don't really feel too much about this. I think it's a one-off. I think, again, when you watch a game and you're just like, damn, the pass game is down, it's like, personnel wise, that's what they were attacking, and they were doing it the right way. So I'm not I'm not really tripping. I like again, like this game is indicative of something that we haven't seen, which is the 49ers kick the shit out of somebody running the football. But I'm not going to jump out the window and say that I'm worried about the wide receivers when the plan was obviously to run the shit out of the football and never drop Mac Jones back unless it's an obvious passing down. So yeah, nah, they'll stick with what they got in there. Again, they're going to stick with what they got at pass rush. They're going to stick with what they got at wide receiver, and they'll chalk this season up to, hey man, you can't get mad at us. We won a bunch of games. We're injured, and that's it. You know, they're not gonna jump out the window for anything like that.
I like that, Jason. Let's talk about some of the concerns at the receiver position. The two big drops of the game. Juwan Jennings has one that results in Mac Jones' lone interception, and then Demarcus Robinson, he drops a deep shot that I thought should have been caught. It was I think Tarico called it an arm punt. Essentially, he had plenty of time. It was tight coverage. For what it's worth, the Falcons defensive back had his arms around Robinson the second he touched it, but that's got to be caught. And I feel like something that doesn't get talked enough is drops with the 49ers receivers. That it seems to happen frequently, but when they're two high profile drops like yesterday, it's a little bit more attention drawing. So Jason, you're the receiver of this podcast. You're the guy who catches my passes. How do the Niners fix the drop issue?
They don't. I mean, they haven't in a
Yeah.
long time. I mean, like they're not going to. I mean, this is years and years of it. It was Debo Samuel the years past, and it was Kendrick Bourne, and it's Kendrick Bourne again. They just don't. And I think that's something that Kyle Shanahan's just got to live with, man. Like he takes the good with the bad when it comes to that. You know, it's just funny. It's a long leash for certain players and their drops and everything, and sometimes it's the smallest thing that'll get you sent to the shadow realm. So yeah, they're not going to. This is just who they are, and it is what they're down to right now at receiver, so they can't really complain. But yeah, this is like a year long. This is years and years and years, right? Like when we talk about special teams, same thing. When we talk about injuries, same thing. Just part of the identity of the 49ers is that their receivers are just going to drop passes.
Let's move to the offensive line, Jason. Not too many complaints from the offensive line yesterday, which is always a good sign. The run game was working. A large part, the offensive line was creating those gaps. 6 pressures allowed from the offensive line. The one sack was Dominic Puny getting wrecked pretty hard on a pass rep. He's kind of had his issues. I'm still curious how much of his issues are injury related, because you got to remember he had that PCL injury entering week 1. He hasn't seemed to be himself. It could be a sophomore slump. But other than that, Connor Colby, he allows 2 pressures, had a reception though. And I want to give him credit for the rushing touchdown for Christian McCaffrey for dragging him into the end zone. Colton McKivitz a pressure, Puny a pressure, Trent Williams a pressure, Matt Hennessy a pressure. This is the offensive line you want. I mean, these are the games that you have to take when they give you a performance like they had last week against Tampa Bay. Is they'll always seem to right themselves. You hope they don't have as many performances like Tampa Bay, but this is your quintessential offensive line performance from the 49ers.
Yeah, and it's really because of game plan, right? Like, and you were on schedule all game.
Mm-hmm.
You were never forced into anything that you didn't want to do. It felt like in this game. So when you did call pass plays, they were quick throws, so it didn't require guys to really be out there, pass blocking. You never found yourself off schedule 3rd and 16, where it's obvious passing downs, and you were able to just function. Your game plan was executed flawlessly to the point where you can cover up for the offensive line when you don't have to drop back that many times. And when you do drop back, it's on your terms, and you're able to get the football out, and you're able to get it out quickly. So yeah, again, like I'm not going to take too much away from this, because I feel like this is one of those games where the 49ers executed their game plan. Things rarely go this well in football games, and there's going to be times where you have to drop right back all the time, or you're going to have to drop back way more, and you're going to have to see what your offensive line can do. This just wasn't one of those games, because they were doing what they wanted and they were on schedule and everything was going to plan. Very rarely do NFL football games play out the way that they did on Sunday night for the 49ers.
I mean, you mentioned the Niners offense staying on schedule too, and the one time they didn't stay on schedule had a 3rd and 13. Atlanta only had 10 men on defense, so that also helps. So that's a really nifty thing when the Niners can convert 3rd and 13s, because Atlanta has 10 men on defense. What kind of team would have 10 men on defense anyways, Jason? He jokingly says, remembering what happened against Tampa
Fire
Bay.
the coach.
But that's the offensive review, Jason. It was a solid game for the offense. Let's move to the defense, because that's really where this game was won for the 49ers. The pass rush as a whole, easily the pass rush's best game of the season. I looked it up. In the last 3 games combined, the 49ers had 30 pressures and 2 sacks. Last night, they had 22 pressures and 2 sacks. They pretty much matched their effort for 3 games. Leading the way, obviously, we've already mentioned his name is Bryce Huff. He had 5 pressures with 1 sack. But Sammy O, he had
Mhm.
5 pressures with a sack as well. His sack was, I think you can make an argument his sack was just as important as Bryce Huff's. I know Huff forced the fumble, but what Sammy O did, he killed a 19 play drive with his third down sack, forcing a field goal. That was Atlanta's longest drive of the season. And typically, when you see 19 plays, like you hope that results in a touchdown for an offense. But Sammy O makes his sack. He stops that drive. But even two beyond that, Alfred Collins with 3 sacks. He doubled his total on the season last night alone.
Three
He had
sacks?
3. Sorry, three
Oh,
pressures. I
I was about to
apologize,
say, I
Jason.
was like, oh damn, I missed that.
We missed a lot. No. Alfred Collins had 3 pressures, doubling his total on the season of 3 pressures entering when I was at 6. Jordan Elliott had a couple up the middle. Kevin Givens had a couple up the middle. That's 4 from defensive tackles. And the interior of the Niners pass rush has struggled a bit. So that's good to see. But then also, too, it was the blitzes that Robert Saleh was calling. D. Winters had 2 pressures, 2 quarterback hurries. Tatum Bethune had 1 pressure, 1 quarterback hurry. Chase Lucas, too. He had a blitz out of the slot for a pressure and a hit. Need to see this more from the pass rush. I know it's going to be difficult without Bryce Huff now for a couple of weeks, but this was the step. I'm writing an article right now, NinersNation.com, where it's kind of the same thing with the pass rush and the running game. Is you're used to that being very good for the 49ers. It hasn't quite hit like you expect. Obviously, there's an easier answer for why the pass rush hasn't been performing as well, and that's because Nick Bosa's out. But this is definitely a step in the right direction that you want to see, that you need to see from this group, and having as big of a game where Atlanta has many ways they can beat you, whether it be Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Drake London. This was very good to see from the defensive line.
Yeah, and kind of to double back on the offense, if you didn't believe that this was a game where they were going to run the shit out of the football, just look at Jake Tonjes' snap count, and Luke Farrell was the blocking tight end that was there with Kittle, right? Like he didn't even there was no 2 tight end action. There was none of that. That was not going to be the plan at all. But back to the defense, I think a lot of it has to do with the stuff on the back end. You heard Chase Lucas talk about whenever Drake London moves to motion and he goes to 2, it's an option route. That's why he sat on and it looked like he knew exactly where the route was going. I think a lot of that has to be attributed to the coverage and the fact that Michael Penix isn't very mobile, and it made them hold the football just a tick longer. But yeah, Bryce Huff and Sammy O were great in this game, and you hope that can continue. But I do think it was a little bit of twofold of the secondary was doing very well to cover things up. They understood what they were looking at. They were very well prepared, and those guys actually taking a step. So I think it's a little bit of one helping the other and everything as well too. So it just sucks. Obviously now Huff's gonna miss a few weeks, and you wonder where that's gonna come from. But the plan of blitzing Batoon and Winners, it worked. And that's the thing is again, personnel wise, you can get away with that against one team, may not be able to get away with it with another. But with the way that Michael Penix is immobile and the way that they were taking away so much down the field so quickly, they were able to get pressure as much as they did, and it was very welcome to see because on national television, and I know we said this last night, that's the most complete football game the 49ers have played all season. And that was something that we've been looking for. I still don't think they've played their best football game, but that's the closest that they've looked from years past on both sides of the ball. And it's just crazy to see the sum of their parts get it done because you're used to those name brand people making it happen, but they're just getting the most out they can out of everybody else, and that has to do with coaching and culture.
Even too, before we move on to linebackers, Jason, good run game for the defensive line as well. Sammy O had 2 run stops. Michael Williams had a run stop. Bryce Huff, Jordan Elliott also had run stops. And again, like I cannot give enough credit to really the front 7 of the 49ers against Bijan Robinson, because I talked about him on Friday, kind of his ability to run the ball, and the Niners hold him to 14 carries for 40 yards. It starts with the front 4. But let's move back to linebackers. And Jason, I'll let you kind of cook with Tatum Bethune because you were on it last week, before yesterday. He shows up in the Fred Wanner jersey, number 48. He's out there running, playing hard. You were on it last week, so I'll let you talk about Tatum Bethune's performance last night.
No, he had a good game, man. He looks solid. He looks the part, and he just understands what it's very telling how quickly it looked like in that Tampa Bay game that you would have thought he was the starter, right? And obviously you're not going to be able to get rid of Fred Warner and say that you're better on defense, but I wasn't nearly as worried, and it was all there, and it's still there, and I think he's going to be fine, and I think the 49ers have, after 2 games, it seems like they've found themselves another one, and again, I think the things that you need to set your watch to are linebacker development, and I think Platoon is the next one. What I did find very funny was Nick Martin didn't see the field at all, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to be I didn't want to be a dick about it all week. Um, but he's not going to see the field unless there's injuries, right? Like it's just, and it's not a wasted pick. Gifford played more. Curtis Robinson played more. Winters is going to play more. They just moved Martin over to special teams. He didn't see the field one time. And that's just, it's again, it's a product of who he is as and where he is in his development. He's going to be active because it's a numbers game, but the 49ers are fine with Batoon and Winters and Gifford. They feel fine about that, and that's fine. There's not a problem. I understand why you guys want to see him because you're seeing every other single rookie play, but Nick Martin's not going to see the field unless there's a substantial injury or a drop off in playing somebody else. And it just, I don't know why people were trying to jump out the window and say like, listen, oh, this has got to be the week. No, they've got their base guys. They've got the guys that they're comfortable with. There's no need to rush him out there, especially if he's not ready. So yeah, Batum looks good. Winters is going to be fine. And the 49ers are just going to roll with what they have there with Gifford and Curtis Robinson, who they like a lot also as well too. So yeah, I mean, great game for the linebackers.
Yeah, no, you see it with Bethune. He had a. I mean, every time they showed him on the screen, they would mention he's replacing Fred Warner. So obviously, big shoes to fill for him. He's 1 for 1. I mean, and in your eyes, 2 for 2 because of how he replaced Warner last week in Tampa Bay. But you see it. You see it, and I mean, obviously, this is an NFL program, but I mean, if there was a linebacker university, it would be the 49ers. I mean, they just keep churning productive linebackers every time, no matter who it is. I mean, going from Patrick Willis to Navarro Bowman to a couple years of Chris Borland to Fred Warner. There is no better stretch of linebacker play in football for the 49ers. And obviously, there's no way you can kind of replace the emotional leader of Fred Warner. But in terms of the productivity on the field, I don't think there's a better team equipped to replace the level of play of a Fred Warner. And again, I'll keep mentioning those offensive weapons for the Falcons. A lot of it was held quiet because of the linebackers on Sunday, and Bethune and D. Winters looked very, very impressive in their debut as the new duo for the 49ers linebacking core.
Yeah, and again, I'm not as worried or anything like that. I wasn't worried about that coming into the game. That's why I was really excited to share what I saw on film and try to keep people from getting really upset or anything like that. And I think that obviously you're going to take a drop from Warner, but it doesn't mean that the drop has to be so significant. And again, when everyone else is playing well and they're playing their keys, and I think Chase Lucas has really earned his way onto the field. Like
Mhm.
I legit after watching this game, I don't want to see Upton Stout anymore. I'd rather just roll with Chase Lucas and just see what he has, man, because he just looks better overall all around. Now, do you want to stunt his development? Do you not? But when he's run fitting the way that they are, and they have that extra linebacker there, and they're able to let them play as free as they are, that's the result that you're gonna get. I'm really excited for Batum, man. He looks pretty good.
Let's move on to the secondary, Jason. Michael Penix finishes with 241 yards, a touchdown. You mentioned on Friday that how I mentioned Bijan, you mentioned Drake London, and how London can be the guy that can beat this Niners team. Season low 42 receiving yards yesterday. He was
Crazy.
held largely in check. Kyle Pitts, he had 7 receptions for 62. Darnell Mooney had 3 for 68. Nothing really hurt the 49ers. And again, it like every other position group, there were some injuries. Obviously, no Upton Stout. Renardo Green leaves the game early with a toe injury. In comes in Darrell Luter, and then PFF didn't necessarily like Luter's game. They gave him a 53.7 coverage grade, allowing 4 receptions on 6 targets. But I thought he played fine. He had a couple big plays, but then Chase Lucas makes the big play of the game. Atlanta facing a 4th and 1, down 3 points late in the game, and he's able to jump a tough route to cover. And I forget who it was targeted to. Maybe you
Drake
remember
London.
that? Was it Drake London?
That's what he was talking
He's
about after the game, that he knew that was going to be an option route. That's why if you watch the play, he sits, and as soon as the break happens and he sees the ball out, he knows exactly where to go. That's why it almost looked like he was about to take that to the crib. He talked about that at the end of the game. I thought that was a really cool nugget, how prepared they were.
And then that's sneaky, probably the play of the defensive game. There's a lot of plays to choose
Hmm.
from, but that's really the one that put the game away. Lucas was targeted twice with 0 receptions against him, so that's as good of a game. And if anything, I don't know what it means for Upton Stout, but if anything, you know what you have now with Chase Lucas. And again, it like with that, I mean, how many injuries the 49ers defense has suffered? It's just good to know that you have any sort of depth at every level on this team. And that's really, again, like it's just a credit to Robert Saleh and what he's done. And we haven't mentioned that name yet, but the game plan for Saleh yesterday was perfect, and Atlanta just didn't seem like they were ever really moving the ball well. I mean, even too, if you look at that 19 play drive that they had, they only gained 60 yards on it. So that's about 3 yards per play, which is behind the sticks. So it's Robert Saleh was in his bag in the secondary, and the replacements in the secondary were a large part of it.
Yeah, and again, I was really taken back by what Lucas said after the game about how he knows that when London goes in motion to number two, that it's going to be an option route. Like that attention to detail just showed that everybody was locked in this week. Nobody was panicked, and I wonder if that was something that was being taught clearly in the secondary room while he was there. But if he knew that he was going to be playing, but that's ultimately why you have everybody in that meeting room. You have them prepared just so they, just in case your number gets called, Upton Stout goes inactive. Chase Lucas knows exactly what they want to do. Just again, the culture, the team, the fight. That's why we labeled this one the 49ers won't go down without a fight. They're not going to quit, and that's something that can't be taught, can't be coached, and it's either you buy in or you don't, and they are. And I think that's what's really important about this game more than anything, and every single game this season, is that this team is not going to quit no matter the circumstances, and they have guys that are ready to step up at any moment. And we're gonna have to do it again this week with with all the defensive line injuries. So
yeah, and listen, it's going to be another. This is looking way too far ahead, Jason. It's going to be another off season of talking about where Robert Saleh might head coach at. At what point do you just say throw the blank check at him? Because I think last night was that. I think last night was throw the blank check at Robert Saleh to make sure he never leaves as defensive coordinator.
I see, but here's the thing. Does Robert Saleh want to be a defensive coordinator? Does he want to be a head coach?
Yeah.
Like, I think if it was as simple as all that, then you would have already just done whatever you needed to do to sign him. But just because you want him to stay and we need him to stay doesn't mean that he wants to stay, and I don't blame him. And he's gonna get a ton of looks at head coach, especially considering what people are saying about him right now, what he's doing with his defense and all these replacements. Guys are playing for him still, and it's clear that he's not the problem with the Jets. The Jets are the problem with the Jets.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's up to him if he wants to stay. I don't know if he does, and I don't think he does. I think he has aspirations to be a head coach. So he's probably going to leave. I can't say, you can say blank check all you want.
Yeah.
But if a guy has an aspiration to go be a head coach, money's not the object, because he's going to be paid even better to be a head coach. So it is what it is. I just think we're in for a one and done season.
What I am curious about is the quality of jobs open, and obviously it's never really a high quality spot if they're firing a head coach.
Yeah, if there's a head coaching spot that's open, generally the team stinks.
Yes, typically that's how it works. I understand that, but I just, obviously the thing with the Jets didn't work out, and that wasn't his fault. You see where the Jets are right now. They're the new might not win a game this season team. I mean, they got Miami again at some point, so like maybe, but I'm curious to see if maybe there's a chance where he sits there and says, okay, it's the Titans, it's the give me another bad team name here, and okay, maybe this is a spot where the Raiders. Another spot of like, okay, this might be too big of a job. Maybe
Arizona.
You stay another year. Arizona. I don't know. So I'm curious to see how that plays out. But again, we're still very far away from that conversation. It's so nice having Robert Saleh back.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had a janitor calling plays last year. I mean, and it's night and day, like between him and Sorensen. So yeah, but yeah, he's making his money. Everything that he's doing right now, is what we expected. We expected his defense to be in better positions. We just didn't realize it was going to be this injury ridden. But the book is out. I think everybody this week, the story is what Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh are doing with a team that has so many injuries. What other team could possibly have been 5-2 without their starting quarterback, starting wide receiver, their best two defensive players? They lost two guys in this game. They lost two more guys after the game. The book's out. Like, everybody knows. So, like, no matter what, if somebody wants to tell you that they don't believe that Kyle Shanahan and them have the culture, it doesn't really matter what you think. It really matters what everybody around the league thinks. And I guarantee you that they have a better opinion of Kyle and this coaching staff than anybody who wants to see Kyle Shanahan fired for whatever weird reason.
Perfect. Well, Jason, we just wrapped that game up pretty well, I think. Was there anything I haven't mentioned yet that needs to be touched on? I feel like I got a little bit of everything, but anything you got that was burning on your mind?
Eddie Pinheiro setting the consecutive field goal record for the 49ers to start his career as a 49er. Special teams was actually a net zero in this game. that is, I would call that a substantial win. And if you look at EPA per play, the 49ers were in the positive in offense, the negative in defense, and they were zero on special teams. I'm not sure if you draw it up any better than that, but let's continue to do that. Let's keep doing that. But yeah, look again, looking back at the game, it didn't really look like that game was as close at all like that. It just felt like one team imposing their will, which is something we've seen the 49ers do over and over. But just again, the buy-in, man. Like, I don't want to hear it anymore. This team is completely bought in. They're trying, and look, again, sometimes the flesh is strong, but the spirit is weak. The spirit's willing and the flesh is weak right now. Like, that's right now where we are with this team, but they're gonna keep fighting, and that's all because they believe in Kyle and Robert Saleh. So, I mean, again, man, if we're talking about looking towards the future next season and stuff like that, why would Kyle Shanahan leave? He still has this team's ear. This team still plays hard for him. He's still able to craft these game plans. He's coaching the best that he ever has, in my opinion, as a 49ers head coach. Even the year that they went 2023, 2023, where they won every single game basically, except for the big one. This is the hardest, circumstances and everything that he's had to deal with. So, this is his best coaching job. Why would the 49ers ever move on from Kyle Shanahan when 25 other teams would fire their coaches right away, right now, to get him in their building?
Yeah, I like it. I really, the only blemish on the game felt like it came from the special teams. That big return by Agnew that set up Atlanta's lone touchdown. But when the defense is playing like it is, like you could afford those mistakes every so often. And again, Eddie Pinheiro making kicks 2 for 2 again last night. You feel good about the Niners special teams, especially when there's not many big blowouts. I mean, Sky Moore, positive. He didn't try and return a punt from inside the end zone. He let it bounce in the end zone, but then he let one bounce at the 10 that was recovered inside the 5. So little inconsistency there. So I'm curious kind of see what goes on there, but
Big
good game from the
reception,
special
though.
teams.
Big reception, Sky. Big reception, Sky Moore. Okay. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
it is what it is, but that was a big reception and a big run after. That looked like the guy that I really liked coming out of college. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, again, when you're playing that well and you're playing complimentary football, you can afford a blemish here and there. But when you're not playing football well that way, you can't afford any of those special teams plays and anything like that. And I feel like Sky Moore, he made the right decision. It just didn't bounce his way. That's the way you're supposed to play it, and you just take what comes with it. You just tip your cap and say that they got the lucky bounce right there. But yeah, special teams is something that I don't really worry about anymore, and it has to do with the kicker. But also, they're starting to get all this stuff together, and the more players that they have that are coming up that are trying to earn roles on this team, whether it's defensively or offensively, are gonna have to work their ass off on special teams. So the effort's going to be there as well too. So the guys that are going to be replacing certain guys, they're going to be fighting their tail off to try and get some playing time, because that's the way to get on the field. So, yeah, you saw Nick Martin on special teams. Good. If you want to play, then start helping wherever you can, man. Like and that's what everybody should be bought into at this point. So if you're looking for things that could be interesting moving forward, it could be the guys that are going to be on special teams who are trying to earn roles on the field.
Perfect. Well, Jason, the 49ers win 22-10. They moved to 5-2. Again, that could be the best record or tied for the best record in the NFC, depending how this Monday night game goes. It's 14-3 between the Lions and Buccaneers right now. Always good when the Niners win. We did 3 stars yesterday. I'll plug NinersNation.com. My 3 stars came out this morning. You can go find my Twitter page, find that. But Jason, anything else you got before we get out of here?
Nah, hopefully Rashad White goes for 30 more fantasy points and David Montgomery doesn't get any, so I could pull off a miracle. But, other than that, we're just watching Houston and Seattle tonight as a family, and go Texans. But I don't want them to do too well, man, because I don't need them getting into this next week's game with a good defense rolling and D'Amico having revenge on his mind, especially with the road trip the 49ers have. So enjoy the win, enjoy the week, but we're going to be watching Houston, Seattle as a family tonight, and we're going to be scouting.
Perfect. Well, Jason, nice quick one today. Niners win 20-10 yesterday. We'll be back Friday to preview the Texans 49ers matchup. I believe is that a 1 o'clock or is that a 10 a.m. game for the Niners?
I think that's 1 o'clock is 10 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay. We get it, Jason. You live on the East Coast. I'm looking to confirm it right now. I just want to double check. It's mainly for my brain. Yes, it is a 10 a.m., 1 p.m. East Coast start for the Niners Texans this weekend.
Early day.
So we'll have that early day. We'll get it out of the way. Enjoy the afternoon games, and then what's the Sunday night game? Oh, the Packers and the Steelers. So be a fun football day for the.
Aaron Rodgers revenge game. Oh hell yeah!
Aaron Rodgers revenge game. So there we go. Jason Aponte. It was fun. Niners beat the Falcons 20-10. We'll be back on Friday. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners. 5-2.
Let's go Niners. Bam.
Bam.